We're here to talk football. We're here to talk Mississippi casinos. We're here to talk quarterbacks. We're here to talk about everything that happened week 1 of college football. It's Josh Neighbors, Jack Allen, College Countdown, JA and JN on a Wednesday with you here. You guys can see at CC Podcast JN, at Josh Neighbors _ and at Jack Allen TV on the Twitters. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel. You guys can find us wherever you all get your podcasts and on YouTube as well. And also, we'll get to DraftKings a little bit, but you guys can use the promo code NEIGHBORS for $300 in free bets. Jack, it's every child's dream to have their last name as a promo code on one of America's 2 biggest sports books. I get to live that out. I appreciate you being here to help me live out that dream.
Look, Josh, if you were not dreaming as a child, when you were a child, did you ever think that sports gambling would be like it is today in the first place?
I didn't know what sports gambling was as a child, but then I learned that I was like, this is awesome. And now, I mean, draft, because like you learn DraftKings, it was like in the beginning, it was DraftKings, right? So you talk about drafting players, it's fantasy football. And then growing up in Virginia, it became legalized. It was like a whole new world. I remember using my first promo code, which was not Neighbors, to get my free bets. And now the fact that people can use my last name and only bet $5 and get $300 in free bets is a pretty awesome deal, in my opinion.
Who would have thought? Who would have thought?
Not me. Against the spread last week, you and I go 3-4. Actually, I think you and I had the same winners and losers. You and I were on the same side. We thought Baylor would win. We had Texas as well. We had Florida State in the upset. We each had Clemson. Although that line got to 5, and I bet LSU. It was just too many points at that point in time. I sent it to you earlier in the week. We had 3.5.
We were 3.5 when we made the pick.
Yeah. South Carolina lays a 7. They cover. We each had that. Notre Dame does not cover, and then TCU covers in a pretty significant way. So just your thoughts, week 1, a 3-4 week, could have been 4-3. It was, up and down, but a 3-4 week, number 1, as we picked our somewhat Saturday 7 as games were strewn across the 5 days of action that we had.
Look, I think week 1 is the hardest week to predict in football, especially in college football. You just never know what you're going to get. You have that first scripted drive that you feel like, okay, teams usually look pretty good, and then all bets are off. And I think that we saw this week that a lot of teams, the defense is ahead of the offense right now. And I think I saw if you bet the under on every single game this week, you would have won like 65-70% of the games this week. And so defenses are clearly ahead of the offenses. That's the sure bet in week 1. But who knows? Who knows coming in? And I think you saw that. I'm just proud to be close to 500.
Yeah, no, we're glad to be in the neighborhood. And I think this kind of goes to one of the first things that you mentioned you want to talk about. So Jack and I picked some topics, some big picture stuff, and that we want to kick around. So quarterback performances are I think, something where it's a good area. And I think particularly you want to look at some of the veterans. So like the veteran guys who did enough to get the job done that down the line we expect a bit more from. I will say the most impressive out of all of them, I thought, was Carson Beck. And, there is, like, from a big picture standpoint, just to talk about him, a lot's happened in his personal life, right? I obviously, the story with the Cavenders, then having, he's dating one of the Cavender twins, I forget which one it was, but then having the car break-in, right? Then having the break up. And I saw him do an interview with Wes Durham from the ACC network. And I believe it might've been done during media days. I don't know, but he talked about how he felt about himself when he was at Georgia. And you could tell when he was at Georgia, he really thought a lot of himself. And that has gotten taken down a little bit of a notch, right? I mean, as like, it was time for the Carson Beck Georgia marriage to end. I don't think Gunnar Stockton's a lot better than him, but it was pretty clear that the team responded better to having Gunnar Stockton at quarterback than they did a Carson Beck. And you saw him at Miami, and he talked about it in the interview with Wes, where he said, look, I'm chasing perfection because I know I won't get perfection, but I'm going to keep chasing it. And so that chase will keep me grounded because I will not start thinking about how good I am. I'm thinking about this goal that I'm chasing as opposed to the quality of myself. And look, it's hard to maintain that throughout the year. But I will say, like, Carson Beck was on his game against Notre Dame, against what we think is a really good defense. And as a quarterback, it looks like he's matured.
Well, and how many times do we look at situations like this where a player moves late in their college career and it's for NIL, it's for whatever opportunity, and the pendulum moves the other way? Like, you think about it, so often they finally get that big check and it's like, okay, I've made it. I'm going to sit and relax. And so that's what feels so much different in this situation is he gets to this point and he says, okay, but this is not what I'm chasing. I'm chasing something bigger. And I think you kind of saw that motivation, saw that performance here week 1 against a good Notre Dame team. Like, let's not act like,
they're good.
They've got some issues on the offensive side of the ball. And this is kind of part of what I wanted to talk about, just in terms of, like, week 1, we saw a lot of experienced quarterbacks, experienced leadership taking down young guys who haven't been there, haven't done that yet. And I think that that's a value that Miami gets in Carson Beck, is a guy who's been there, done that, but still has that motivation to want to get better and isn't content to say, okay, I am where I want to be.
Yeah. And we saw it with two separate, Florida-based teams. I mean, you saw like CJ Carr and Ty Simpson had not played. And then you see Tommy Castellanos and Carson Beck, who are both transfers. And not only do they play well, but they both managed the game incredibly well. Like, they kept the trains on time. They kept their teams in front. And I mean, once their teams got the advantages, they were never trailing, I don't think. I think once Florida State got ahead, they definitely never trailed. And then once Miami Miami they eventually tied in the game, but they had to drive
the game away a couple.
They tried to get the game away. Carson Beck didn't, but they tried as a good Lord, Mario Cristobal. This guy, when games are tight, there is no coach that you want less coaching your team than Mario Cristobal. I mean, it is the conservative, tight, clenched, play calling that we've come to expect. But to your point, Jack, like, if you look across the board in these big games, save the Ohio State game, a lot of veteran quarterbacks winning. Josh Hoover wins on Monday night. Lenora Sellers wins on Saturday during the day. And I know Kyron Jones has played some, but like, he plays well enough. Defense plays well enough. Special teams touchdown as well. It wasn't like the offense was lighting the world on fire in that game, but Carson Beck plays well enough. Tommy Castellanos plays well enough. Garrett Nussmeier plays well enough. We're going up and down the line, these big contests, and Haynes King plays well enough. Another older guy who plays well. Like, across the board, it was these older guys in these games where, hey, the offense isn't quite there yet, but guess what? Steady enough performance to get the victory.
Hey, even Max Johnson looked decent.
Oh my God.
In year
12.
In year 19, like, I covered that pass to Jere Jenkins at LSU, what felt like a decade ago. No, I think that it just goes to show, with the week 1 volatility, those other quarterbacks will get there. I know Arch has taken the ultimate beating on social media for the last few days, and it's fun. Don't get me wrong. I'm sitting there like a like machine on Twitter too. They're funny. But get them off now, because a lot of those young quarterbacks we're going to come back to at the end of the season, and they're going to be fine.
Well, maybe not, or maybe in 2 years, like some of these other guys we're talking about right now, right?
Yeah, I mean, think about it. A month ago, we were trashing Tommy Castellanos because he was, coming after Bama, and he was chirping, and we said, no, what are you doing? And here he is. Now he's suddenly, Bama's the butt of the joke, not him.
Yeah, it's interesting the way it goes with stuff like that, right? And to your point about, we mentioned Florida. Is Florida as a football state back? We'll get to that 1 second. First thing I want to do, once again, thank our friends at the DraftKings Sportsbook. So, folks, if you faded us, you would have been around 500 last week. Still had a decent week, but if you all want to check those lines, check those spreads, go to DraftKings. And I encourage you all to go do it now, because your best edges will typically come earlier in the week. Now, you can get an edge late like we did with the LSU game. Saw that late edge. Once that thing pushed past 3, pushed back past 4, push past 5, you are able to get the kind of advantage there. But check out all of those at the DraftKings Sportsbook. You guys can do that today. And if you all bet $5 when you all sign up and you use the code NEIGHBORS, that's NEIGHBORS, NEIGHBORS for new customers, you get $300 in bonus bets instantly when you all bet just $5. So once again, if you bet $5 on Oklahoma against Michigan, you get another $300 coming your way to use this weekend. So DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER in New York. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino Resort in Kansas. Fees may apply in Illinois, 21 plus, and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. Once again, code NEIGHBORS for $300 in free bets after you bet your first 5. So, Jack, state of Florida. How about it? A big weekend. Obviously, the Gators win, but that's not too hard. USF starts the weekend with a big win. They take down Boise State. Also on the weekend, Florida State gets a big win. Miami gets a big win. Am I missing anybody else out of the big dogs? I think we covered all of them. UCF
survived.
UCF, that one. But I think the big question here is between Miami and Florida State, because Florida playing in the SEC, it's a bit more of a different story. But between Miami and FSU, which one do you expect to have a longer advantage, I guess is the way to put it? Which of these teams do you think looked better?
Well, for me, I think we've touched on Carson Beck's performance a lot. I also want to mention CJ Daniels and LSU transfer. Those LSU wide receivers, if you can find a way to get one as soon as you can. That catch was incredible. I think one thing that was very interesting, and I don't know if this was an Alabama problem or if this was Florida State, but Florida State dominated the line of scrimmage against Alabama. And that's just something you didn't expect to see. And I think that's if they can do that against a team like Alabama, and we figure out that it's not a systemic Alabama problem, which it may be, I think that Florida State, if they can do that in that situation, they can do that to pretty much the entire ACC. I think Clemson is still sitting there as a physical force, and I think we saw that against LSU. But that was the encouraging sign to me more than anything. I still think Miami's probably the more talented of the two teams. But like I said, if Florida State can have that sort of dominance on the interior, I think that this is a sustainable model and they could be playing for something by the end of the year.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I'm looking at Miami. Good Lord. That Miami schedule, or excuse me, that Florida schedule is absolutely it's pretty brutal.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got, so the funny thing is both Florida and Florida State will get to test their mettle against the Miami Hurricanes. Everybody kind of in this triad is going to play, so it's going to sort itself out. So I think that Miami has the better quality of player overall. Like, I think their defense looks really, really good. I think Florida State's defense had the benefit of playing a quarterback in Ty Simpson that was a bit behind schedule. And look, I like the fact that in that first drive, they were able to get a lot of third, a lot of fourth downs for that Alabama offense, but they were able to convert and move the ball downfield. So I think it's interesting because I like Miami more. I like Miami more, but also I think that's got something to do with the quality of player they faced, because Miami was able to just kind of pace themselves, get the job done. I would be interested to see when they play Florida, when they play the more athletic team. Now, Florida will be coming off. Florida's got a crazy back-to-back when they've got Miami and they've got LSU on the road back-to-back week. It's just like, oh my God, how did that happen? I mean, you have a situation like that. Let's see. Yeah, Florida's got LSU 9-13, and then 9-20. They're at Miami. So those are both road games as well. So we'll see how that goes. But for Miami, I think they're more well-rounded. And once again, I'll maintain this. Like, if their defense is markedly better, Carson Beck will not have to be Cam Ward. But even after last week, as much praise as we gave Carson Beck, Jack, he's still not Cam Ward, in my opinion. Is that fair to say?
Yes, I think that's fair to say. I don't know if anybody is clamoring for him to be the number one pick in the NFL draft. Right. Like the reality is that Cam Ward had he had an athletic profile that was better. He was a little bit more of a
gunslinger.
Yeah, that's where he's getting more arm strength. He can make throws. Yeah. Carson Beck simply cannot. That's the reality. Now, I don't want to jump into the typical white quarterback. He's a game manager. He's more of a game manager than Cam Ward. Carson Beck is a good quarterback, but he is also a game manager. Totally. Let's not jump into all the stereotypes. But
he's not Patrick Mahomes. He's not Josh Allen.
But he's not going to be asked to be much more. And if the defense can play like they did this past week, he is plenty good enough to do what he needed to do this past week. And I think, Notre Dame's going to be one of the toughest teams on their schedule.
Yeah.
Obviously Florida State, Clemson, those are the kind of tough matchups you look at, but that match that sort of level of physicality. But I mean, I think Miami with a win this week is in really good shape.
I think Miami might be a better team than FSU. I think there's a chance that Florida State has a better season, because if you look at this list of teams, Florida State plays Eastern Texas A&M, which you got anything on them?
Texas A&M Commerce.
Is that who they are? Mm-hmm. Because on CBS Sports, they're still listed as East Texas A&M.
Well, no, they used to be Texas A&M Commerce. Then they rebranded to Texas A&M. Correct.
After that, they've got Kent State. Then they're at Virginia. Not too hard. I can tell you, Scott Stadium on a Friday night. FSU's lost that game before. I don't think they'll lose that one again. Then they've got Miami at home. They've got Pitt at home, who are two of the better teams in the ACC. A tough West Coast road trip against a great Stanford team. Watch the hell out for that one. And they've got Wake Forest at home, at Clemson on the road, Virginia Tech, and they have at NC State and at Florida. Point being here, 10-2, very much in play for FSU, but I don't think that means that they're necessarily a better team. And these two teams play on October the 4th. I think there's a good chance that we might see them on December the 4th or 5th, whatever day. I'm going to check the calendar really fast.
Interesting.
Whenever the ACC championship game takes place, December looks like it'll be let's see. I'm going to the schedule now. Come on, Josh. Let's see if we can get that one. December the 6th. Or if it's a Friday night game, December the 5th. So point being, there's a chance that these two teams could face off once again at that time of year. But, because look, this is the 3-horse race in the ACC, unless you got something else. I mean, Jack, do you have anybody else in the ACC?
No.
It's Clemson and – look, I'm not going to bury Clemson all the way down. They should have won that game. They were not able – LSU flipped the pace of the game and then kind of put it on Clemson late in that game. Clemson should have maintained pace in what was a tight, low-scoring game and kept the energy and should have gotten the job done. But Clemson, Miami, and Florida State, it's a 3-horse race. I don't think SMU is going to be able to rebuild and restock and reload the way they were last year, although I think they're going to be good. And I don't see anybody out of that Pitt, NC State, Virginia Tech tier of second teams punching up. Although I will say, JKS, the kid's name from Cal, kid looks like he might be a player. That quarterback they got at Cal. But I don't see anybody punching up above that tier in the ACC.
Well, that's the thing is I feel like one thing we saw this week was that the middle class of the ACC is a lot better than maybe it's been in the past.
Sure.
But I don't think that means that any of those teams are ready to take the step into that top sector of the conference. that's kind of where we're at. It's like I feel like there are 3 teams that are more talented than the rest. SMU, you might be able to make a case, could jump into that conversation. They've got a great kid at quarterback, but I think that at the end of the day, like it runs through Florida and it runs through Clemson, and if Clemson keeps on throwing, what did Dabo say? A 58 grade on their
that was a strange one. Wasn't it? That was a strange comment.
And then Brian Kelly came back yesterday and went after him.
Yeah.
But if Clemson keeps playing at that level, then I think the conference runs through the state of Florida. But I wouldn't sell the farm on Clemson just yet.
Yeah. All right. Favorite non-casino hotels in Mississippi. Some odd comments from one Kenny Dillingham yesterday talking about the preparation of games and like how specialized it now gets now. And I say more of this to just to highlight this question for you, Jack. What was your favorite press conference clip of the last entire weekend, actually? What stood out to you? Because my top 3 were Brian Kelly, Dabo Sweeney, and then Kenny Dillingham. It's weird. He's like, we had to go an hour away from Starkville to find a non-casino hotel, which
is a lie.
A total bold-faced lie. Like, where do fans stay on game day in Starkville? The Holiday Inn. There are other places to stay.
Google Maps is real. Like, can we get? Do they not have that in Phoenix, in Tempe? Like, what are we doing? No, I mean, I'm still blown away by Brian Kelly going after Dabo Sweeney the other day. Like, I get what Dabo was saying was like, hey, this is week 1. We're not going to look our best on week 1. Like, we can accept that. But for BK to come back and say, well, we looked pretty good. I don't know if you watched the second half. Like, the reality, like, he's got a fire in him now. I don't know.
The funny thing about it is, like, he clearly seems to think that LSU is 100% that team they were in the second half. Like that, which to me that's Jack, considering the schedule they play, I find that pretty dangerous. Just because I think now, like what you're doing, and look, is he partially setting a standard for his team? Yes, totally. But you've now set an expectation with the fan base as well that the version that you were in the second half, the version that was not only good enough to go toe-to-toe, but to even it up, to retake and to push back what Clemson was offering and take the lead from them and take the win from them. That's your expectation. I'm fine with that, but do you agree with, hey, LSU is not always the most steady team in the entire world. So maybe you should calm yourself a little bit with standard setting that, you should say like that should be our standard. But Brian Kelly is acting like that's the LSU team he expects to see on a down-to-down basis.
Well, and if there's one thing that being an LSU fan for the first 18 years of my life taught me, it's that nothing is stable in that team, in that organization, in that state. Like, come on now. Nothing is stable at LSU.
Right.
Even when they won the national championship, they lost 2 games, both times. Like, let's be real. And so, but I think you're right in the sense that, like, you, first of all, as a coach, you're going to fight for your guys. You're going to, if someone takes a shot at your team, you're going to defend them. Like, you're not going to roll. Huh?
Especially after a win.
Yeah. Like, if you get a top 5 road win, like, go ahead, talk your trash. Like, that's the time to do it. But I do think it is setting a standard to say, like, this is what we expect from us. But let's be real, if LSU plays like they did in the second half, they could be sitting there at the end. Like, defensively, that was an LSU team we have not seen in a long time.
Yeah. Mansour Delane, man, what a pickup that kid was. I mean, he was, Delane last week, I think it was 40 snaps in coverage, 8 attempts at him, 1 catch, 0.0 passer rating against, and they've spent that money. It looks pretty well spent on the back end. All right, Jack, where can the folks find you when you're working all of its variety?
You can find us on KATV. If you live in Arkansas, tune in every night. Me, Steve Sullivan. We got good coverage of the Razorbacks. Big one this week, Josh. We didn't talk about it, but for the first time ever, FBS versus FBS in the state of Arkansas and Arkansas State in Little Rock. We're going to be live from 9 to 11 at the stadium. So if you're in Arkansas, even if you're not and you're interested, you're like, man, how do two teams being from the same state never play each other? We're talking about it. 9 to 11 on KATV. You can find me on Jack Allen TV. Also, I just want to, if for people watching on video, representing the 2023 Division II National Champion Harding Bisons, GAC football is back this week, baby.
Yeah, we wrap all divisions. So the Harding Bisons and Paul Simmons looking for their second title in 3 seasons this year. Also, you guys can find me on Twitter at @JoshNeighbors_. Find the show at CC Podcast JN. Wherever you guys get your podcasts, we're on YouTube as well. Jack, we'll see you next week.